And sometimes when we're afraid, though, we do things that we shouldn't do when we're afraid. When we're afraid, there's a lot of fear in the world now. Sometimes when you're afraid, you may turn to old habits, turn to vices, may turn to the bottle now that you're in fear, or you may call people that you shouldn't call, or you're in fear, or you may be afraid, and so now you've got 100 rolls of toilet paper stacked in your other room because of fear. Because of fear. The devil tempted him when he was hungry. So the devil went to Jesus when he was hungry. The devil wants to attack us when we're hungry, when we're physically weak and when we're spiritually weak. So one of the acronyms we can use for that is SHOUT. SHOUT as in thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not covet, SHALT. So the S is for stressed. When you're stressed, you're more susceptible to the enemy. And these are also things to look at when you bring stress to your relationship. So shout. These are one of the things, if you haven't been through shout with someone, then you don't really know them yet. So if you haven't seen someone when they're stressed, so when you're stressed, you're more susceptible to the enemy. You're more susceptible to temptation to do things you wouldn't normally do when you're stressed out. H, when you're hungry. When you're hungry, we saw the enemy tempted enemy with hunger. When you're hungry, people can get upset with you when they're hungry. When you're angry, obviously we've all said things when we were angry that we wish we could take back. When you're angry is a time when the enemy can step in. When you're lonely and you have no one around, you're susceptible to do things that you wouldn't normally do. And T, when you're tired. So shout. When you're stressed, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Those are the times when the enemy can attack you. And so never make a life-altering decision when you're in any of those states. So what did it mean that Adam and Eve's eyes were open? Because they could already physically see. It means that their conscience was exposed to evil. It means that they were aware of the existence of evil. They became conscious of the consequences of evil. Once they ate of the apple, they became aware of something that they were never supposed to be aware of. They became self-conscious. They were conscious of themselves. Now they became overly concerned with what was wrong with themselves. They were self-conscious. They hid because they were naked. They became ashamed. They became ashamed because they ate the apple. They became afraid. They became afraid because they ate the apple. And also, they surely became mortal. They became mortal because they ate the apple. They became mortal and they became conscious of their mortality. So they became afraid of their death because they ate the apple. So fear of death is a consequence of the fall. So now the fear of death is the background music that plays in the mind of all humans. Humans are the only ones that are concerned about a fear of death without any necessarily threat. We still fear it. The enemy uses these things as a tool against us. He uses fear. He uses our self-consciousness. Now we're worried about what other people think about us. We're worried about everything else. We're worried about ourselves. We're conscious of ourselves. Did I do this right? Did I do this right? Oh, I'm naked. Do I look right? Do my clothes look right? So we have the fear, we have the self-consciousness, and we have the guilt and the shame that are results of the fall. So we were never supposed to experience these feelings. We were never supposed to experience any of these feelings. So Jesus came as a solution to this issue. So if you truly accept Jesus' sacrifice and accept the grace of God, then that can help us become free. So when we have the fear of death, if we accept God's eternal life, then that can help. If we accept God's eternal life and that we have a better place, and we truly believe that, then we no longer have a need to fear. We're self-conscious. We're worried about other people think. If we put our identity into Jesus, instead of my identity as this position at the company, or my identity is I'm this role, or I'm this rank in the military. It's like my identity is I'm a Christian. My identity is in Jesus. If I'm proud of the fact that I'm with Jesus, I'm no longer conscious about myself and worried about myself. The guilt and the shame that we have if we accept God's forgiveness, if we accept God's unconditional forgiveness, then that can relieve us of the guilt from the past, of the things that we've done in the past that God has already forgotten about. So the goal is to get back to the state before the fall. The goal is to get back to a state before we had a fear of death, get back to a state before we were conscious of ourselves, get back to a state before we were guilty and ashamed. We don't want to be afraid anymore. So there's a song that says, "You unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God." So let's walk in the way, let's seek the truth and live the life.